I said it before, and I'll say it again. Ana de Armas sucks. She's a pretty girl, and I think in limited use, she's capable. She should not, she cannot lead a film. She is exposed, and she is a big reason why I did not like this movie, nor do I think this movie was well made. That said, and we can get into this a little bit more, but I want to quick get this out before we move on. About halfway through the movie, it lost me. Completely lost me. And I started giving my son the eyes. Not hungry eyes, you weirdos. But I started giving him the this is retarded eyes. I kind of did.
Yeah, that tracks.
And for those of you still listening to audio podcasts the way God intended on audio, I kept turning my head to him and giving him the oh my God look. And he was like, yeah, I know. We were in recliner seats. He had stretched his out. He was basically like laid flat. And I'm pretty certain he'd have taken a nap if I let him. And as this movie wore on, and they threw Ana de Armas around, like I believe the thing's name is Yokoshima, the Japanese wrestling doll.
No, that's not its name, but for those of you who have never seen DDT Pro Wrestling, there is in fact a blow-up doll that is a wrestler for them.
Uh-huh.
Proving once and for all that there are some good workers out there who can get a passable match out of literal plastic.
Well, that's how they treated Ana de Armas in this movie. And I just there comes a point in the movie where it's so stupid. How stupid was it? I was laughing hysterically. There were people in the audience, I'm sure, going, who is that laughing and why is he laughing? And then my son, because laughter is infectious, was laughing with me. And I caught out of the corner of my eye the single tear rolling down my daughter's cheek. And when the movie was over, I saw her get up. And I immediately said, before my son said a word, we're not talking about it. We get it, Lily. You liked it. And she says, yes, Father. And I can see you didn't. And I said, that's right, Lily. And we're not going to talk about it. And then Jonas said, I have to pee. And he ran away. And I looked at my daughter and I asked, why does it cry? And she said, because I am annoyed. And I said, but why are you annoyed? We're not talking about it. You're not being told you're wrong. I killed the conversation in its crib. Dead I buried it. And she said, it doesn't matter. I already know that he doesn't like it, and it annoys me that he doesn't like it because he doesn't like anything I like. And I turned to her and I said, there is no hope for you. Let us go get Zaxby's. I hear there's a quesadilla on the menu now. And off it went. Yeah.
Said you're a good girl, Lily, and patted her on the head.
I kissed her ever so gently on the forehead and said, marry a good man, lesbian. Welcome to Pride Month here on the Rattlegion Broadcasting Network,
where we acknowledge that pride is in fact one of the deadly sins, the deadliest in point of view.
Anyway, you want to talk about Ana de Armas?
I mean, okay, so for those of you who don't know, there was a time a few years ago when Ana de Armas began to become a thing in Hollywood. She was getting pushed. She got the Vince McMahon, Harvey Weinstein push because she did things the other girls wouldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that is wild speculation on my part. Please don't take it seriously. We have a disclaimer. Don't know why I felt compelled to add that to that one, but I did.
and completely gloss over what I said 2 seconds ago.
You were talking about your own children, Mark. I have learned to leave that alone.
It's fair. Just saying, like, of all the things we have to point out, we have a disclaimer for.
Well, you feel the need to reiterate the disclaimer at points. I feel the need to reiterate it at points. We'll just split the difference there. So,
Ana de Armas.
Ana de Armas began to get the push from a handful of the people in Hollywood who decide who gets the push.
Yeah.
And we watched her in a few different things. She was briefly in the last James Bond movie, where they felt the need to have James Bond not make out with Ana de Armas because we must subvert expectations and James Bond is a problematic character. Mark and I both rolled our eyes.
Mm-hmm.
She was in this terrible pseudo thriller with Ben Affleck that Mark made me review as part of a triple feature. And it was at that point.
It was a double feature on Damn
Double.
You Hollywood, and it was before I'd come out at the time. I am no longer, but I had come out at the time as Polly, and I didn't tell Robert this. So Robert's going, and I'll tell you another thing about 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 non-normative relationship dynamics and multiple partner dynamics, and he's flipping tables over, and I'm like, I don't have the heart to tell him I'm one of them peoples now.
Mark,
So, that was the whole review.
It would not have changed one thing I said.
No, it didn't, and I to this day and still enjoy that conversation because the tension between us was palpable, but it's not the kind of tension where by the end of it I don't want to be your friend anymore. It was like good, it was like good dramatic discussion, two different points of view tension, like the whole reason I get excited about this sort of thing. You had a perspective. There was no way I was going to shake you from it. I had a perspective, one that I was living at the time, and we could just talk about it. And at the end, we went, I don't see your point of view. You don't see mine. Let's shake hands and never speak of the shortcut again. It was great. It was the way conversation should be done.
Indeed. But that was the point at which I, who sees around corners,
Robert has 360-degree peripheral vision,
stood up upon the mountaintop, raised my arms high, and said to the people, stop this. See this? Pointed to Ana de Armas. This is not going to happen. Stop this. Stop doing this. Stop it. And Mark said to me, but Robert, she's a pretty girl, and the executives like her, and the people will like her. And she's not a bad actress, so stop your haranguing.
Welcome to Damn You Hollywood, in parentheses, where we're going to eat those words.
And then, so I have been on this particular mountaintop preaching to the masses for a little bit now. And then Blonde happened. And Mark looked at me from down in the valley and heard my words. And he came up to the mountain to converse with me as we discussed Blonde. I grabbed him by the shoulders and I said, Mark, she can't keep an accent straight. It wanders.
And I said, pish posh. This movie doesn't require her to have a consistent accent.
And then Mark said, look, we both agree this movie sucks. But she committed. She was an actress. This is supposed to be a prestige film. And she'll get awards because people don't have the balls to call this stuff out anymore.
I mean, it's more performance art than it is a movie, and I was okay with that. And we were thankful.
No. You were just like, okay, I can talk about this instead of the other stuff we're talking about where we're having to drudge up things to extend conversation.
Yeah.
And then Mark went back down into the valley with the people and the golden calf with the face of Ana de Armas that they offer sacrifice to. And I said, God will smite us if you don't knock this off. And Mark looked at me. He got a quizzical look on his face. And he said, because he knows I'm not right about all of this stuff. I'm, for the sake of setting aside the bit, I am not 100% on this stuff. But I'm above 50. I am more right than I am wrong. And Mark looked at me and he said, this guy who about 65, 70% of the time accurately predicts the wrath of God is saying the wrath of God is going to come down on us if we're not careful about this. And then the trailers for Ballerina dropped. And Mark put it on the schedule. And that's okay. There was nothing else to put on the schedule. But now Mark comes to me on the mountaintop before this show starts and he goes, Robert, we have to open this movie with Ana de Armas sucks. And I said, so Mark, you have finally come to the point where the curve that I've been ahead of you on. Welcome. Now let us preach to the people so we can avoid more of the wrath of God in the form of these terrible movies.
And by the end of all of this, we would both be nailed to crosses. Listen.
By the end of all this, I'm coming down with the 10 Commandments written by the finger of God about how movies are going to be made in the near future. No one will listen to me because I am not Moses.
So most of that is true. Um,
The mountaintop's a bit exaggerated, but
she's got a small part, if I remember correctly, in Blade Runner 2049. Small enough that I don't remember it.
no, she's the girl. She's Joy.
She's okay.
She's the hologram, the robot.
I think where she starts to become noticeable and memorable is in Knives Out. But she was controlled. She was what was good or bad about her, or what was good about her rather, was accentuated. What was bad about her was hidden in Knives Out. Knives Out is a large ensemble cast with a lot of capable actors and a whizzy script. She could hide in Knives Out.
Knives Out has the Paul Heyman philosophy going on.
Yeah.
We're going to accentuate the positives of everyone, and we're going to hide the negatives as much as humanly possible.
Right. So Anna de Armas comes out of that one seeming like a capable actress because they are not asking her to stretch in any way, shape, or form. She's playing a normal human. From there, she does a couple of things of no particular note. She does Sergio and the Night Clerk, of which I have no idea what those are and don't know anything about it.
These are things that were like in the can kind of before Knives Out, but then, this happens all the time with someone who like will line up a bigger project that's shot before the thing that kind of makes them notable. Like, for example, Chris Hemsworth shot Cabin in the Woods a while before Thor. Cabin in the Woods didn't come out until after Thor, no small part because Hemsworth became a much bigger name.
So then, as Robert mentioned, she's Paloma in No Time to Die, and we talked at length about No Time to Die, about as long as the actual movie itself, which is 3 hours. And we talked about how, because in the year of our Lord 2021, you can't have an old man kiss a young pretty girl anymore. So the movie is what it is, and it suffers for it. But she's not horrendous in No Time to Die. She also doesn't have a very, very big part.
Yeah, she's there for like one action scene.
Now, she's good in Deep Water. You may not like Deep Water, and Deep Water may not be a good movie, but as a batshit crazy swingery gal who's bored with her marriage and trying to figure out the best way to navigate wanting to fuck around and not be tossed out of her comfortable home, she's great. She does a perfectly fine job at this. Because again, she isn't really asked to carry the movie. It's Ben Affleck's movie. She just plays the crazy wife. So Deepwater is fine. She moves on to The Gray Man, which we reviewed. Oof. That. Oof is right. This was by another pair of directors whose only good thing they've ever done is the Avengers movies, and everything else stinks, as did The Gray Man. And I don't remember her in The Gray Man at all.
She's briefly there. She winds up being like his kind of support staff for a little bit.
Yeah.
For Ryan Gosling.
And she's in Blonde, as Robert mentioned. And I love Blonde because of the conversation that Robert and I had about it.
Okay. You love Blonde because Mark has and I say this with love.
Mm-hmm.
You have an affinity and a penchant for the grotesque. And Blonde fills that niche in your heart.
It's such a weird, stupid, badly put together movie. It's kind of like, again, it's kind of the piss Christ of films. Where you're like, I don't understand why this is art, but it is art, and I accept that. And, we shouldn't give money to this thing, but I appreciate its existence as art that challenges people. That's Blonde for me. Also, again, it was such a wildly disturbing movie, and it got a lot of kind of like the Idol, where it got so much press that it didn't deserve that I had to talk about it.
We could have never talked about the Idol, Mark.
Or Blonde, for that matter.
Well, I'll accept that we could have talked about Blonde because it started getting buzz.
Yeah.
And when we did our award season catch up, it deserved to be there for that because there was talk like, hey, Anna de Armas could win Best Actress. And then you and I watched the darn movie, watched everyone else who was nominated, and went, she's here by default, not because she earned it.
So credit where credit's due. Blonde sucks, but Anna de Armas is so wildly over the top crazy. It's one of those performances where it may or may not be good by your definition of how, what constitutes good acting, but she really goes for it. Like, this is a movie where they were like, don't be afraid to lose your fucking mind in front of the camera. And she goes, right, and proceeds to do so. And you go, how wildly unhinged. This is amazing. This is the acting performance equivalent of the body movement of the monster in Malignant. It's like, what the hell are you doing? This is madness, and I'm intrigued. That's Blonde. So again, Anna de Armas's inability to act hides well in a movie like Blonde, because your inability to act comes across like you're just acting unhinged. Then we move on to Ghosted, which I've heard is terrible.
It is.
And I don't know anything about it, but she's opposite, I think, Chris Evans in that one again?
Pretty sure, yeah.
Because
Because she's the super spy and he's the himbo.
Yeah, yeah. This was one of those this was an Apple movie.
It's an Apple movie, and let's subvert the tropes by having the girl be the spy and the guy be the idiot. And we haven't seen that 18 million times over the last 5 to 10 years.
So she survives that one by virtue of it being an Apple movie, and nobody watches Apple movies. Nobody watches.
Bear in mind, Blonde. She survived Blonde for the same reason, because the group of people who watched it on Netflix are not the kind of people who matter in box office returns.
Yeah. So now we come to it, children. We are here. This is the WrestleMania moment for Anna de Armas. This is the boyhood dream, if you will. This is Anna de Armas entering the Arrowhead Pond of Anaheim on a
zip line.
As she rides in there to finally achieve being at the top of the mountain, she is leading a box office feature. Granted, it's for Lionsgate, barely a studio, but I digress. She is finally able to lead an action movie. A big time, big budget, big IP, well-established lead in an action franchise. This is Girl John Wick. And we're going to talk about the film itself, but I have to then say, this is where she's not Shawn Michaels. I don't know who ended up in the main event and you suddenly realized they couldn't wrestle and who let this happen.
Roman versus Brock.
Sure. Let's go with that. She's Roman Reigns several years ago.
Big dog era Roman, who Vince is pushing and the audience is rejecting.
Yeah. Anna de Armas works, as far as line delivery goes, in very controlled environments where she has to play a normal human. Here, she has to carry a movie with her dialogue delivery, and she can't do it. She can't act. And it was hard to watch this movie watching a lead who can't act. So the story, and I don't want to get too much further into the craft review, so we'll end our discussion here. But what is the point of the last 20 minutes or so? Other than this is what we do here on Damn You Hollywood. We babble for 20 minutes, and then Robert babbles by himself for another 10 minutes, and then we babble together for another 30.
I will babble a lot less this time. It's not difficult to figure out.
Is simply this. Now that the spotlight is on her, finally, Chris Bailey, we suddenly see that this person that Hollywood has been pushing, that this person that Hollywood is behind, finally had a chance at the mountaintop to lead her own franchise, and she whiffs the ball entirely and clocks the Empire. It's fucking terrible. This is the kind of performance where she may not ever get another lead action role again. She may not ever get another lead again. Like, she's going to get relegated to the kind of stuff I reviewed a few months ago with Mick and Mac, like The Life List or Nanas or something. She's going to get relegated to the mid-tier Netflix romance movie because she's a pretty girl and she can handle that. And I will give you the last word on the suck shitness that is Anna de Armas' acting ability.
Okay. Because Mark got here a little bit later than I did, he's a little bit more bitter than I am about this.
I'm so mad.
So, again, there's a few things positive about her I'm going to say when we get to the review.
She could take a
But
beating.
I'll get there when I get there. I'll say, just let me handle that. Because I don't wish you to come away from this discussion with me going, she has no use. I
Sure.
don't think that's true. She's not a lead.
No.
And that's not the end of the world. It's not the end of your acting career. There's a lot of great actors and actresses who are not leads, who can't
Sure.
carry a movie. Because carrying a film is a skill set. It is a thing that you can develop it, but there's a lot of that you either have or you don't. And you can carry smaller stuff a little bit better than you can carry big stuff. Look, Kevin Bacon can carry a smaller movie. He can't carry a big movie. And I love Kevin Bacon. Very good actor.
If you look at the vast majority of Kevin Bacon's career, he's opposite people like Tom Cruise.
Yeah. He realized a little bit after Footloose that he wasn't quite going to hit that height again. And if he wanted to keep working, he needed to stop looking for leading roles. So he started looking for really good supporting roles. And guess what? That man has been working for decades.
With the exception of Tremors, which is like a film nerd's favorite movie.
I happen to love Tremors, first of all, so
Uh-huh.
But no, that was one of those movies that, like, look, he can carry a small movie. Tremors is not a big movie.
Right.
That's the kind of thing he can carry. He can lead under the right circumstances. He's fine in The Bondsman, which is basically a movie.
Uh-huh. Talked at length about that.
But he can carry that. You can't throw $100 million and put it on Kevin Bacon's shoulders. But he's also a guy that you're never sad to see on a call sheet.
Yeah. He's always a solid hand.
Yeah, and Ana de Armas, I think, has the ability to find the right niche, to find the right thing, but this ain't it.
No.
So,
you know where she would have been halfway decent? If they had put her in Companion.
Yeah, she could do that.
That would have been more her speed.
Yeah, she does a lot better at... It's ironic given, you're yelling about her inability to act, but she actually does better in the smaller scale dramatic roles.
Yeah. When she has... See, here's the problem. And it'll be the last thing I say, and then we're going to the plot synopsis. They asked her to be a superhero here, and she's not that.
Yeah.
She's an exceptionally pretty girl next door. Okay. I don't want to get into your and my personal preferences among women's faces. Most people would agree.
Okay, let me rephrase. Categorizing her as within the girl next door category of...
Mm-hmm.
Look, we all have those categories, right? She is definitely top half.
Sure. My point is, the girl next door is not necessarily about your facial features or your body type. It is about your approachability. And Ana de Armas has a charm and approachability. The problem is Ana de Armas's face says leading lady. Her acting ability says girl next door.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
In an era of silent film, she would have been the queen of the world.